I have a bold prediction for you. We are about to learn that the World Trade Organization is just as compromised by China as the World Health Organization, as the United Nations, as almost every other international body. Because as we have talked about, and as you know, China is not a normal country. China has got free trade agreements with lots of countries, including our own, and you know, because you've been watching this show for a long time, I didn't like this deal even when it was first announced. Because just like any deal that China does, they decide to renegotiate. And by that I mean ignore it. Remember the deal that was done way back when, 1997, about the future of Hong Kong? Well, that didn't even last till 2020. It is effectively back in full Chinese control, decades before that was supposed to happen. We have a, as I say, free trade agreement with China, yet for purely political reasons, they've decided to go after our barley, after our coal, you name it. They have found a way to halt our produce, our wine as well. So now we're going to go off to the World Trade Organization, where China has recently become a member. They were championed into the World Trade Organization by Joe Biden. But, I mean, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. So let's run through today. Where Australia, yes, is finally going to go off and complain to the umpire, but is the umpire going to give us a fair decision, or are they going to be like every other international body which is bent over and manages the relationship with China? We'll see. Here's the Trade Minister.
This is the logical and appropriate next step for Australia to take. We have been a long-standing defender of the international rules-based system, of the importance of multilateral cooperation and engagement. And in doing so, it's appropriate that when we argue for there to be international rules and an independent international umpire to resolve disputes, that when we find ourselves in the case of having such disputes, we call in the umpire and we ask the independent umpire to adjudicate and ultimately to help to settle those disputes.
Do you trust the umpire to be truly fair and impartial? I hope so. But I think we're about to learn that it is just as compromised as the group that was supposed to investigate the pandemic. Remember the World Health Organization and their boss? Well, he had said that China deserves gratitude and respect. They were the people who ultimately are investigating China for the pandemic that got out of control. As for the Chinese and their foreign ministry, this was their response today.
The Chinese authorities have recently taken measures against some imported Australian products in accordance with law and regulations. It is in line with Chinese laws and regulations and international practices, as well as a responsible act for Chinese domestic industries and consumers. Actually, for some time, I have repeatedly heard some people from the Australian side claim to be the so-called victims, constantly accusing and attacking China by innuendo, which is completely making a countercharge confusing right and wrong. China will never accept this.
This bullshit is infuriating, but watch how this game goes. Every poll everywhere is showing that Australia fully backs the Prime Minister, fully backs our government and fully backs our sovereignty to stand up for our citizens, to demand knowledge and accountability about something that has killed 800 of our own citizens and more than 1.5 million people around the world, destroying Western economies and giving people the opportunity to tell us lockdowns might still be an option till 2022, even with a vaccine. Here's the PM.
Our values will still be our values. We'll still continue to set our laws here about foreign investment and our critical infrastructure. We'll have a free press. Parliamentarians will be able to speak freely. We'll want to understand how to deal with world health issues. So, they are clear positions Australia has always taken, including on human rights issues. But we want to see China do well economically. That's good for Australia. So the relationship has a big future if we can just focus on the things that benefit us both.
And will it surprise you that each way Albo is exactly on the wrong side of this? Australians know that our Prime Minister is doing the right thing. We trust that our government is doing the right thing, and we know that China is doing the wrong thing. But let's hear from the bloke who not even half of Labor supporters believe is their preferred Prime Minister.
What the Australian government needs to do going forward, though, is tell Australians what their strategy is for dealing with these issues, because Australian jobs are at stake.
They have you, Pill. They have said what their plan is. They're going to the WTO, and we'll see what the umpire does. What's your plan? Shut up, roll over and don't offend? Because if that's the case, Australians definitely don't want you as their Prime Minister, and you will continue to lead the Labor Party into oblivion. Not even half of Labor supporters, think that bloke is the preferred Prime Minister, and rightly so.